Hi again, students. This video is meant to be a tour of Visual Studio, kind of to help get you started working with it. It'll focus on the basics, and of course there's Visual Studio is huge. There's all kinds of nitty-gritty to it that I don't even know. But we're going to just focus on what you need to get started. We'll be working with it a lot this semester, so I went ahead and pinned it to my taskbar. So when you click it to start it, this is what it looks like. You have a small splash screen, and you'll have what I consider, this is one of the differences from 2015. And so therefore from the book, the start screen's a little different. There's a principle in human-computer interaction called the principle of consistency. This is sort of reflecting that, in my opinion. If you open up Excel or Word, it'll have like a similar look to it, I think. You'll have like some recent stuff somewhere, and then like general tasks that you do. So for our purposes, if you've already been working on something, you might find it over here. You can just open it up and continue. But to get started, you'll either open something that already exists and like build on it, or look at it, maybe a book example, or you'll create your own new project. So I'm going to show you like one that already exists. So click on that button, it'll open up a file explorer. Like the book suggested you have this directory, so I went ahead and created it. C# 2015 on my C drive. And chapter 1, there's something called financial calculations. If you navigate into that, this is what you see in the folder. And the one you want, just remember purple. That's what my brain does. There's a Visual Studio icon with the purple symbol here. That's what you want to open. I think you can start working with project 2. But for our purposes, we're always working with just the solution. So go ahead and select that and open it. So look for .sln. It'll take a second to get started, to load all the components. And what I have here is what you need. I think this is the default. I might have pinned the toolbox, I'm not sure. But when you first start working, these are the windows you need. You pretty much don't need anything outside of this that I can think of. So in this particular example, you have 3 forms that you're working with. So this is the solution. Explorer is what it's called, this window. Now here's what you want to think of as a solution. For our purposes, a solution and a project are kind of interchangeable. In the real world, in a really complex Visual Studio.NET application, you might have a solution that's made up of many projects. Think of projects as like different big tasks. Like maybe you have one that just shows that works with the data, and another one that interacts with the user or something, and you put them all together into one back application. Those could be separate projects. They could even be done in different languages. So you notice there's a little symbol on this project, just a C# project. You can have a Visual Basic project as well in one solution. But for our purposes, at least in the beginning, I think probably for the whole course actually, you will only have one project in your solution. So you can kind of think of them as interchangeable. And a project could be made up of one or more files, code files that you work on. And you can see those listed here. Don't worry about these things. This might come up later. But you want to focus on the things that are .cs for C#. Okay, so that's the Solution Explorer. That's how you can sort of navigate around if you need to. I don't actually use it a whole lot because when you first start, you'll just have one form and one code file for it. So you don't do a lot of moving around in here. You also have a properties window by default. And again, you can rearrange these however you want. Just don't lose them so you don't know where they are. You have to find them again. Maybe look under the views and windows over here to make them show up again, other windows. I just keep these pinned for the most part. Sometimes when I'm doing a lot of work here, I'll unpin them so I have more space. You can also you'll see this in the book too, by the way, or the slides. You can also, if you're in Design View, well, actually in any view, these different windows like Solution Explorer, you can float them if you want. by just pulling them. Maybe if you have two screens, you can put it on one screen and like have this one big design panel in the middle, so you have more space to work. And if you need to redock it, there's like little helpers here, like putting it where you want to put it. I think that's where I had it before, whatever. Always redo my properties too. I'm gonna collapse that. I'm gonna pin it and then see if I can put it back over here where I wanted it. Yeah, there we go. So that's how you can kind of move things around too. So Toolbox Solution Explorer, properties window. And the properties window, what it does is just so you have an idea. You'll learn more about this later, but just so you have an idea of what it's for. Particularly when you're working with GUI components. So it can be anything that has properties. You select it, or maybe use this drop down box to select a component, and it tells you like specific properties about it, like what color it is, whether you can what happens when you interact with it, what the sizes are, the fonts, that are involved in it or whatever. This is a panel, so the panel contains other things. So for instance, let's just look at a button real quick. The most important thing you want to keep track of with these properties is the name. I think by default you have this categories view. I like the alphabetized because when you do that, names near the beginning. A parenthesis, open parenthesis, is alphabetically before a capital A, so kind of on purpose. The property has this name with parentheses, so it's near the top. And you want to change the names of your components that you work with in your code so they make sense. The defaults are like generic and they don't have any meaning to you. So when you first start, that's one of the main things you'll do is like go to the name properties of these things and change them. When you're working with the GUI also, you'll have a toolbox over here. You can drag things over. So for instance, if I want to checkbox on this form, I can select it and pull it over and add it. Because I'll also like double click and it should put it one automatically on there too, that you can move around wherever you want it. So that's just, there's buttons, there's all kinds of labels, panels, there's all kinds of things that you'll learn about how to put on your forms as you go through the class. And I think I probably should have mentioned what this middle and first, this is like I call it the design window. There's probably a different name for it, but there's two main ways you interact with this window. You'll have like your GUI components. So it'll start, when you start, I'll show you how to start a new project here in a second. Actually, I probably should do that very soon. But you'll have a form already for you that you can add to. And you can add more forms later on. We'll do that. But you'll have this design view. So you'll see whatever you've got selected here, you'll have these square brackets around design. That means it's the design view for it. And if you go up to view and change to code, it shows you the code that's associated with that thing. So we have form main.cs. This is the code for that form, and this is the design for that form. So the visual component, and then the logic that happens with that component. This is what you'll mainly be doing in the beginning. You'll be switching back and forth between these two things, so that like maybe you put some figures in here, click a button. What happens when you click the button? Well, it's going to read those figures and do some calculations with them and display them somewhere. For instance, in this case, it probably displays an answer right there. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and show you the other way you want to interact with things. So I'm going to close solution. I'm not going to save anything because I was just messing around. And I'm going to go to create new project. So this is if you're just getting started. I think in the beginning you tend to work with things that are already there for you. But if you have to create your own new complete project, for the most part in this course, you'll be using creating a Windows Forms app. So select this one, C#. Make sure it's a C# language. If you want to, you can narrow these things down to, I think the view I have here is not the default when you install it. So you want to narrow it, because there's a million things Visual Studio can do, right? Even if you just do that one workload that we downloaded. So you want to like narrow it down. We're not going to do anything but C#. We're only going to be working in Windows. Until future notice anyway, further notice. And desktop Windows applications in C#. So these are your choices here, some testing stuff, some Windows, WPF, whatever, Windows, something, I forget what it stands for, but it uses more like an XML design, or this more drag and drop paradigm that we use when we're learning about C# in this course. So pick Windows Forms app and then click next. Give it some kind of name. A lot of you might see in my folder here, I have a bunch called Delete Me, because these are just messing around to show, demonstrating stuff. So I'll make sure I know I'm safe to delete it. My location by default is here. Whatever's here is probably, whatever you have for a default here is okay. It's got repos because I think this is from a former, I'm not sure if this is the setting for my former installation or not, but this is for like if you're using Git or something. It doesn't really matter where it goes though. So just have whatever the default there is there, or create one for this class maybe where you store things. And then click create. And what you'll see is it will look pretty much like the one that already existed look like, except you'll only have one form with a generic name, form1.cs. And I think in the olden days it did the designer view first by default instead of the code, but computers being kind of slow apparently. You'll have this form to start with. I could say more about it. I don't really want to about how to get started here. I think I'll save that for a future video because I've already talked enough. But just as a review, the things you'll work with, this main big panel, either the design view for it or the code behind, and you switch. There's probably a hotkey too that I haven't memorized. Switching between code and designer. You can also do this actually. This is where you'll be doing most of your typing and work, and then you might have to like navigate around with Solution Explorer. Sometimes, honestly, you'll be working more with toolbox and properties though. You might pull over a button or something, and you might want to go and change the name of the button. I'm gonna just show you. I'll show you that later. But these are the windows. What you have here is all you need to start working. And if you have any questions about the video, I'll make a. I think maybe I was going to make one for getting general help in installing Visual Studio. I'll probably just have a general help forum, but maybe I'll make a discussion for each video or something. I don't know. We'll see. But you can always ask questions there or send me email.